To everyone out there trying to manifest something, I want you to understand, especially in the beginning, your mind is not going to be your friend for most of you. But more importantly, your memory is going to be your enemy. Your memory is going to be your enemy until you train your memory and until you train your mind to be your friend. You see, there's a reason why the Apostle Paul, I believe it was in the Bible, has that passage that says, "You must die daily. I must die daily." There is a reason why Neville talks about sin and missing the mark. There's a reason why Neville Goddard talked about all evil is the cause of the unrevised scenes of the past. There is a reason why teachers like Joe Dispenza wrote that book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Our memory is pretty much the reason why most of us, especially starting out in this manifestation journey, we will be fucked and it will be extremely difficult for us to manifest because we continue to reminisce, mull over, ruminate about the past. You see, I was having a conversation with a family member recently. The conversation made me want to make this video because during that conversation, it made me realize one of the biggest problems that we have as human beings, and particularly when it comes to messaging and media, and especially listening to our family members when it comes to certain issues and certain topics. And having this discussion, it hit me once again because you know these things, but then when you continue to have conversations with certain people, it brings stuff up and it kind of just smacks you in the face again, and it makes you remember and realize why people struggle so much and they never break out of the habit or they never break out of generational curses and all of the above. So I was talking to this family member about what's currently going on in the world right now, but more specifically, what's going on in America. Obviously, as a lot of you guys know, we just had our election. A lot of the world had their elections this year. We were talking about world issues, DEI, racism, certain things like that, things going on in the world, and how people are just panicking about Donald Trump taking over this administration and just looking at everything through the lens of the glass is half empty rather than the glass half full. All types of stuff in regards to all of that type of stuff with the political landscape going on in the world. But this all ties into manifestation, in my opinion, because it shows why people, in my opinion, don't manifest and have a hard time manifesting what they want to manifest is because they're so focused on looking at what is going on in the 3D in the world. So we were basically having this discussion about racism, DEI, and this person was born in the 50s. And so the way they view the world, and again, this is the problem with so many people who practice LOA. The way they view the world, they still view the world through the lens of being born in the 50s and growing up during that time period. And this is a key point because this is extremely dangerous because this is exactly why people stay stuck and cannot manifest is because of their recollection of the past and how they grew up. And so when people like that, when they see what's going on in the world today and they think about how they grew up, they can't help but see things and kind of speculate about things through the lens of racism. So they see things going on like DEI being extinguished and people saying we're no longer going to worry about DEI, all of that type of stuff. They look at it like, oh, that's racist to get rid of DEI. They look at, oh, if DEI goes, how are we going to be able to thrive? How are we going to be able to flourish? People of color or women, or we're all going to be set back. We're all going to be slaves and yada 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 yada. I mean, all the nonsense that you hear people talking about. But I want to address a point this person said to me because this is extremely important. This person made it a point to say because of my age and how I'm much younger than them, that I didn't know and that I was basically in a sense uneducated, and how I needed to read more books so that I could become educated and so that I could look back and that I could remember about the history in the past, about what we went through as a people and all of that type of stuff. And when this person said that to me, it clicked. And I said, that's it, Marv. That's why people struggle, is because people of older generations, what happens is, and why so many of us, we struggle at times to manifest things, is because things get passed down from generation to generation. And you always hear generations before us tell us things like never forget. always remember the struggle, always remember the pain we went through. Never forget, never forget. But I realized to a certain extent, especially from an LOA perspective, you have to forget, especially on an energetic level, because you can remember something but not be energetically attached to it. You see, this conversation that I was having with this person was talking and acting and feeling as if it was still the 1950s and the 1960s, not realizing necessarily in the sense, yeah, obviously they realize it's 2025 now, but the way you're thinking and acting and believing, you're believing that, oh, because DEI has been taken away, programs are no longer doing diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. You think, oh, we're gonna go back to not being able to find jobs again. You're going back to that poverty mentality that people had 50, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, so forth and beyond. And this is exactly why we stay stuck, because we are stuck in the past of whatever the original trauma was. Or as I like to say when I work with people, we are stuck with the original sin. And I tell people that all the time. It's going to be extremely hard to manifest something, especially keep something, if you are still trapped and stuck in whatever the original sin is. A lot of people that grew up in the time of racism, a lot of people that look at life through the lens of that type of stuff, of whatever the original trauma or the original sin was, a lot of people have a hard time moving past that point and seeing life and experiencing life through a different lens, because their bodies and their emotions are still stuck and trapped in that time period. And this is exactly why so many people have a hard time manifesting things, whatever they want, when it comes to whatever. It could be money, it could be relationships. Your mind and your body is still stuck on that time when you were 15 and you were assaulted, or when you were 20 and you were assaulted. So therefore, the fact that you remember, again, what I said earlier is, we have this thing saying, never forget, always remember. If you have that mentality of always remember, never forget, most likely it's going to be extremely hard for you to move your body and your conscious mind to a future event, and to try to project that future event that you want to happen, to bring that into the present moment, as Joe Dispenza talks about, and to manifest that here in the now. Because it is extremely hard, like Joe Dispenza talks about, it is extremely hard to break the habit of being yourself. By the time you're 35, you've developed a set of habits that are pretty much unbreakable. And this is why you hear people say things like, the older you get, the harder it is to break your habits, because that's true. You are a set of conscious and unconscious movements, thoughts. Your body, by the time you reach 35, I was recently reading Joe Dispenza's book. Once you hit 35, you're basically a bunch of unconscious beliefs. Every day you wake up, you think the same thoughts, you eat the same thing, you dress the same way, you take the same route when you go to work. You don't realize how unconscious you've become throughout your 35 plus years of life on earth, even before 35. So you don't realize you're just one big habit and you're just moving through life. So it is so important to view life through the lens of, you have to change your mind and start to think and take on that tone of the new person you want to be. You literally have to break the habit of being yourself. You have to die daily. Just like Paul said, you have to die daily. Easier said than done, as I always say. And also remembering that when you stay stuck in the past and remembering things and not getting past things, that is going to be to your detriment. If you have to, in a sense, you have to, I'm not saying completely eradicate the old memory, but on an energetic level, you have to get yourself to the point to where you can think about the past and you have no emotional attachment, especially attachment to your body, because the body stores emotions. When you create a new feeling, when you can create a new emotion and you can sit in that emotion, that's when you are in the process of beginning to create your future, a new future that you actually want to manifest. But what happens is we unconsciously continue to manifest our past because we stay stuck in our past. Like I'm telling you guys about this conversation that I'm having with this family member about everything that's going on in the world right now, and how they're looking at life through the lens of fear instead of looking at life through the lens of the glass being half full instead of half empty. And when you practice these LOA principles, in my opinion, you should always be looking at it as the glass is half full. You should never look at life and be afraid of what's going on in the world necessarily, especially if you believe in these LOA principles. When you believe in these LOA principles, whatever's going on in the world, you should look at it and just know whatever's going on, you're going to figure out a way to adapt. No matter what president is in your country, no matter what laws are taken away or what new laws are established, you are going to figure it out. When you practice these, especially when you practice these LOA principles, everything going on in the world right now, I am not concerned one bit about what's going on in the world. I was not concerned when Donald Trump won the election. I would not have been concerned if Kamala Harris had won the election. I would not have been concerned. Do you know why? Because I understand that I have control over my life. I have to be the one to make better decisions. I have to break the habit of being my old self or being myself currently if I want to get better. And the problem is there have been all types of presidents in office, Republicans, Democrats, whoever. And guess what? People's lives have not changed because they have not broken the habit of being themselves, no matter who's in office. It could be Clinton, it could be Bush, it could be Obama, it could be Donald Trump, it could be Joe Biden. And guess what? People's lives still haven't changed. Why? Because they haven't broken the habit of being themselves. So when you see all of this stuff going on in the world, it should not phase you. People getting rid of DEI should not phase you. If you see all of this stuff going on in the world and you're thinking, "Oh man, we're doomed. My rights are going to get taken away. Oh no, racism." This stuff should not. Let me give you a perfect example. You guys that read Neville, remember Abdullah? There was a story that I remember hearing about Abdullah. Apparently, Abdullah walked into a show years ago, obviously at the time when racism was way more prevalent. Abdullah walked into a show. I don't remember what it was, some sort of opera show maybe or something like that. And Abdullah just walked in and got his ticket, and he sat in a section of the show where I don't believe blacks were allowed to sit. And he just walked into the section of the show and he sat with no issues, no problems whatsoever in a time period where racism was extremely prevalent, and he didn't have no problems purchasing the ticket. He didn't have no problem sitting in the section that he sat in. And he did it because Abdullah walked in that knowing. He walked in that knowing. He didn't care what the circumstances of the world were. Because as you guys know, if you really study LOA, you understand and know circumstances don't matter. So stop making them matter. When you see, oh, this law was passed. When you see, oh, this law was taken away. Oh, no, they're not going to hire black people anymore. Oh, no, they're not going to hire women. Oh, no, I'm gay. They're not going to hire me. It's all bullshit. That's not true. It's all lies. If you study LOA especially, or if you even study religion, none of this shit going on in the world should phase you. You should have a higher power. You should have a higher faith that you believe in. And you know you're going to be okay then. You're going to be taken care of. Another example. What was that story in the Bible with, I think it was Peter, when Jesus was walking on water? And this is a perfect analogy in my opinion, because you have Jesus walking on water, and I think it was Peter who stepped out and he focused on Jesus, and he also started walking on water. And this is a perfect analogy because it's like when you are focused on your goal, when you're focused on your vision, you don't see anything else. You don't care about it. And Jesus is walking on water during the time that the storm was going on. Big storm was supposedly going on. And Jesus was walking on the water. And then as Peter started walking on the water, focusing on Jesus, focusing on the target, again, focusing on life, focusing on your goal, whatever it is that you want to manifest, focusing on that. So in this example, Jesus is the target. Peter was focused on Jesus when he was walking on water. And then as soon as Peter took his focus off Jesus and started focusing on his circumstances around him, oh man, I'm out here on this water. Oh man, we're really deep in the ocean. Oh man, there's storms going on. He sank. He no longer was walking on water anymore. And he had to be saved. So I want you guys to think about that. Jesus stuck his hand out and saved him. And what did he say to him? You of little faith. Why did you doubt? Again, I cannot stress enough the perfect analogy. When he took his eyes off of Jesus, when he took his eye off the target, when you're taking your eye off of the target of what you want in your life, when you're trying to manifest, whoever it was, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's money, whatever the case might be, when you take your eye off the target and you start focusing on all the noise what's going around you. Oh, look at what the news is saying. The news is saying 200,000 people are going to get laid off. Oh, look at what the news is saying. There's going to be a ban. There's going to be a ban on this. There's going to be a ban on that. Oh, no, there's tariffs. Oh, prices are going to go up because there's tariffs. You of little faith, why are you doubting? Why? You know, it's funny. I laugh because so many people in this world, especially people who are religious that don't even necessarily follow LOA teachings, which LOA teachings are all in religion, but it's not called LOA, obviously. But it's funny. So many people think that they're Christians and they're not. They don't live like Christians. They live like worldly people. So many people call themselves believers, whether you are a Muslim, whether you are a Christian, but then you live in fear as if you don't believe in a higher power. You live in fear as if you can't do anything, as if you are not mostly in control over your actions and decisions and what you do. It's crazy because I look at so many people in my family, friends who call themselves Christians or whatever the case might be, and they want to act like they really are believers. But then when you look at the actions they make in the 3D, they're not believers. They live in so much fear. They live in so much fear. Like the Bible says, you can't necessarily serve two masters. Have one foot in, one foot out. Lukewarm faith, hot, cold. When you start to adapt these principles and teachings, you gotta, in a sense, go all in. Even when everything around you looks like it's failing. Another book in the Bible, another story, Job. Everybody knows the story of Job. Job went through so much stuff in the Bible, so much stuff. Was losing everything left and right, and he never cursed God one time, even though his 3D was effed up all around him. And guess what? He got everything back that he was losing because the devil made a deal and said, you can touch everybody, you can touch everything around Job, you just can't touch Job. And they thought that Job was going to curse God. And God was like, I'm going to show you that Job can't curse me. He's not going to curse me, that Job loves me, that he's loyal, he's faithful. And Job passed the test. He was loyal and he was faithful. And then he got everything restored to him. And so, again, these are all examples of looking at your life in the 3D, understanding what's going on in this world, no matter what the circumstances may be, no matter if you're losing your job, you see racism happening to other people. You guys got to understand that the glass is always half full, not half empty. And get rid of this get rid of this toxic remembering. Remembering, your memory is your enemy a lot of times. Like I told you guys earlier in the video, Neville literally said, evil is caused because of the unrevised scenes of the past. Because you literally keep remembering all the bad shit that has happened to you. You keep remembering, again, this goes back to the conversation I'm having with this family member. You keep remembering racism. You keep remembering all the bad shit about that. You keep remembering that time period. So energetically, you can't get past that time period. And so energetically, what's going to keep perpetuating is when you see stuff happening in the world, you're going to view the world through the lens of racism, even though it's not technically racism. If everybody is racism, if everybody is a racist, then there is no racist. Just like if everybody is an assault person, then there are no assault people. If everybody's out here committing SA, then there's no such thing as SA. When everybody becomes something, you take away the meaning, you take away the label from it. So again, energetically, you have to get out of the past. You have to get out of the memory stage. You have to stop thinking about whatever the original sin was. Yes, it happened, but you have to get to the point to where you heal and move past that, because that is a big reason why people of all communities stay stuck. Is because their families always tell them, don't forget the past, never forget the past, always remember, never forget where you came from. But to a certain extent, you gotta forget where you came from. Why would I want to remember poverty on an energetic level? Never forget where you came from. That's true. You can remember to a certain extent, but like I'm saying, energetically, you do want to forget what poverty feels like. You don't want to remember what that shit feels like. Breaking the habit of being yourself. You have to get to yourself to the point to where you don't remember necessarily who the old person was, in a sense. This is what Joe Dispenza talks about when he healed himself. Breaking the habit of being myself. I got to break the habit of being that person that had the spine injury Joe Dispenza was talking about. I have to break the habit of remembering that, thinking about that all the time, and coming out of meditation and realizing, oh, my spine is still messed up. I have to stop thinking about that. I remember a few years ago, to give you a personal example, when I got really sick, I was in the hospital and I had got contracted with meningitis. My mom was telling me a story recently about, she was like, yeah, you remember your roommate in the hospital, the guy that was da 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 da? And I told her, I was like, no, I don't remember that. She was shocked. She was like, really? You don't remember that? And I was like, nah. And in my mind now, I'm thinking to myself, why would I want to remember that? I don't want to remember that moment. I don't want to remember that guy. I don't want to remember the fact that I was super sick. I don't want to remember that pain. I want to forget that pain. That was the old me. That was just the experience. That was just something that happened in my life. That was just a time period. It was an experience. It's not who I am. That was just something that I went through. So no, I don't remember that moment. But that just showed me also too the power of the work that I do on myself. The fact that I don't remember what she was talking about, and I don't remember that whoever my roommate was when I was in the hospital at that time. I don't remember any of that. And that shows that I'm really let a lot of that stuff go. Yeah, I remember that happened to me, but a lot of that stuff is a blur. I don't remember it because I'm making a conscious choice to not remember it. I'm making a conscious choice to be this new person, to walk in health. And so when you make that conscious choice to do that type of stuff, you naturally forget about experiences that you've gone through in your life. And you do become new in a sense. You might be able to remember stuff here and there. You might be able to talk about it, say, yeah, this happened, that happened, but that's it. And you can talk about it without that emotional attachment, to where you're truly free. and you truly have a testimony. And so this is the point that we got to get to. And I just wanted to hop on here and make this video because I realize this is a huge problem. Lack of revision, being a revisionist person for the worse, thinking about the past all the time is destroying people's manifestation. It's destroying y'all. And let me remind you guys, and this should have to go without saying, but let me preface my comments by saying I'm not saying that what happened to you isn't bad. I'm not saying that what happened to your group of people, if it's a cultural thing or your specific situation, whatever you've gone through, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing to go through. I'm not saying that you don't have every right to be upset or still hurt or still have pain. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is if you really want to heal and if you really want to become new, you're going to have to work through that. And you're going to have to stop using that as an excuse to stay stuck. You're going to have to get out of that victim mentality because, quite frankly, that's really what it is. A lot of people still have that victim mentality from whatever the original sin was that either their people went through culturally or what they might have gone through personally in their own personal lives, whatever that situation might have been. Whether you were beaten, whether you were abused somehow, sexually, or whatever the case might have been. If you want to break the habit of being your old self, you have to get past that point. And this is something that I see constantly with people who are trying to manifest SPs, is people go through stuff and they attract partners who were abused or whatever the case might be, and their partners aren't working through that abuse the way that they should be. And so what happens is they continue to perpetuate bad relationship after bad relationship because they don't realize that until they break the habit of being themselves, nothing's going to change. And they stay stuck in that time that they were abused. And so that's all they know. And they go from partner to partner to partner, and they still have that identity there. They still have that victim mentality there. And then that causes them to blame people, whatever, blame all men or blame all women or whatever the case might be for your specific situation. And you got to understand, in order to get past that point, in order to attract healthy, you have to stop. You have to get out of that victim mentality of an understanding that's not who I am. That was just something that happened to me at a moment in time. And that's where a lot of people struggle, is they never get past the part that that's just the moment that happened in time. They don't look at it that way. They look at it like that's who I am now. I am a victim of assault, and that becomes their identity. They look at themselves as I'm a victim of assault now, and that becomes their identity for the rest of their life or for a long period of their life until they heal that and get out of that. The way that you have to do that is you have to not attach your identity to that, and you have to start telling yourself that was just a moment in time that happened to me. That's not who I am. I'm not that person. Same thing with athletes. Athletes get their identity attached to their sport. So when that gets taken away from them, they don't know who they are. You have to understand, being an athlete is something that you do. That's not who you are. You are so much bigger than being an athlete. You have so much more to offer than being an athlete. That's just what you did as a job. That's not who you are. Who you are is infinite. Even as an abuse survivor, you are infinite. That's who you truly are. You are God still, even as an abuse survivor. So again, it's about attaching your identity to the truth and not remembering, in a sense, the old in a bad way. I say all that to say the technique that a lot of you guys should be focused on, in my opinion, is revision. Because a lot of people need to revise their past. You need to revise the sins of your past. You need to stop looking at your past as sins and maybe even giving it that label. But bottom line is, most people, they move through life and they never revise their past. They never stop telling that old story. Like I started the video by saying, they always remember. I got to remember. I got to remember. They feel like their power is in remembering. They feel like if I don't remember, then my power is gone. If I don't try to control the situation the right way, then I'm losing my power. No, the ultimate power is in letting go. The ultimate power is in surrender. That's the true power. This is what the LOA gurus are not going to tell you. They're going to tell you, oh, just affirm. Just affirm. No, this is deeper than that, man. This stuff is so much deeper than that. Revision is really the number one thing most people need to work on, because you've learned very bad habits from your family members and the media and people telling you to remember and never forget and all of that type of stuff. But I'm here to tell you that in order to really truly heal and step into your new identity, especially in the energetic level, you're going to have to forget. You're going to have to forget. Or you're going to have to stop telling that old story. If you do tell that old story, you're going to have to learn how to tell that old story without emotional attachment to it, because that's how you know you've gotten past it. Easier said than done, but it's doable. But how do you do it? It starts with realizing every day you get up, you have to die daily.